Folks, I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm gonna be really bummed when I'm done covering WCW 2000 on this channel, because I've actually been having some of the most fun in my YouTubing career going back and watching this, and I cannot wait to tell you about the insanity that takes place on this particular show, because there's some wild shit to talk about here. We're only talking about Fall Brawl 2000 from September 17th at the HSBC Arena in Buffalo, New York. This show was nominated by Derek Gray over at patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret. This is the 8th and final Fall Brawl before the company would go under. It's the first Fall Brawl in many years not to include the War Games. More on that later. They gave it away on Nitro. And yeah, this is just a continuation, me finishing the story, WCW 2000, trying to finish those last shows before the year is up as we celebrate 25 years of us still talking about WCW from that year. And there's a lot to talk about here, because a lot has happened since the events of New Blood Rising in Canada. Right now, the main heel group in WCW is Vince Russo, Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, and Scott Steiner. And to think we thought this was the scraps left of the NWO. They've all been working together to keep the belt on Nash, and every week since New Blood Rising, since this coalition formed, I think one of Vince Russo's, one of his greatest things, one of the biggest tropes he liked to lean on during this time was, is the main heel group gonna break up? Like, we saw this during the corporate ministry days in the WWF, where it's like, oh man, here's this misunderstanding. Oh man, this guy has eyes for the championship. Oh, that's gonna interfere with the pro. And then by the end of the night, it's like, we're just kidding. We're friends after all. The whole 2 hours we've spent building this lie washed away. Like two weeks in a row, at least, they are doing that just for this storyline between New Blood Rising and Fall Brawl. And right now it seems that Goldberg and Booker T are the biggest threat to the baddie stable. Sting is there right now. He's part of that coalition, like along with the Cat, the commissioner of WCW. But especially Sting kind of sticks out in where he is in that hierarchy. He seems like maybe third in line, and he's just kind of floating around, like not really part of the solution, I guess, in the war against, Team Russo and Nash. And meanwhile, very interesting part of Bret Hart's WCW career. Remember, at this point in 2000, he is all but retired. They have not announced it yet. At this point, they probably still don't know, if he's gonna come back, but they're definitely, hedging their bets and continuing this feud with Bret Hart and Goldberg that is never going to reach a resolution, because there's a couple of times throughout the course of this build where Bret Hart just shows up and screws Bill Goldberg over. Like, at one point, Goldberg's burying this hole in the desert for Russo. Bret Hart just shows up. It's like, you thought I was gonna let you do this by yourself? And then Goldberg turns around, he clocks him with a shovel. And then a week or two later, War Games 2000, Goldberg's gonna win the matchup, and Bret is there to screw him out of that. And I don't know how many more appearances he has in WCW at this point, but it's not going anywhere. So it's just extra window dressing that they're trying to use to basically kill time in that feud. Let's go to that opening hype package, and what is this? We are seeing some stop motion animation of WCW action figures next to live action footage. I don't know what this Fall Brawl action figure set is in the background. It's a very weird look. It's like, hey, credit to whoever animated all those sequences or whatever, but it just sticks out. I mean, it literally makes this company look like it's for kids. It just did not look good. I think that's not putting your best foot forward using stop motion animation of action figures. There's a little over 8,600 folks in the HSBC Arena, 75,000 pay-per-view buys this show earns. It's down from the 130K the previous year, and also down from the 85,000 New Blood Rising got the previous month. Tony Schiavone, Scott Hudson, and Mark Madden are on the call. Your opening contest, as is WCW tradition for the most part, is for the Cruiserweight Championship, or rather the 100 kilogram and under championship, as primetime Elix skipper from Team Canada with Major Guns defends against Kwee-Wee, who is accompanied by Paisley. Both these guys are some power plant graduates who now are really kind of in the apex of their WCW pushes. Alan Funk, Kwee-Wee had been around for a bit before this, but I think this 2000 2000's easily his best year as Kwee-Wee. And then you've got Elix Skipper, who had been around kind of on the lower shows for a while, but right after New Blood Rising, he joins up with Lance Storm and Team Canada. And Storm, who is in the midst of his huge push, he's got all these belts, he hands the Cruiserweight Championship over to Skipper, and they rename it 100 kilograms and under to represent the Canadian flavor. He comes out with Major Guns, who is part of the group against her will these days. A couple of weeks ago, Lance Storm beat General Rection in a prisoner of war match, which basically meant he could take any member of the Misfits in action and try to Canadianize them. And that's what he did with Major Guns. He again, here's another Russo trope, women as property. So he grabs Major Guns and then spends the next week trying to Canadianize her, which just seems to be her going through a rigorous workout regimen at the gym in the arena. And it ends with a big brawl in the swimming pool, which is actually kind of fun to see. So Kwee-Wee starts out with a body slam that ends with a face bump. We get some quick back and forth to start out. Fans are chanting USA. A leapfrog attempt goes awry, but they soldier on. Skipper with a great springboard backflip to get behind Kwee-Wee, hitting a big full Nelson suplex. And not just through this match, but like every Kwee-Wee match you're watching at this point, they'll say on commentary, oh, you never know what's going to happen, like that angry Alan, that angry alter ego of Kwee-Wee's. But at the time I'm watching this right now, like, he's not really doing that. Like, that was an earlier part of the gimmick, and I think he might go back to it later. But right now, it feels like anytime he gets angry, it's like after the match has already happened and the bell's already rung. So it's like they're saying every week, oh, you never know when he's going to do that, and then, like, he doesn't do it. Kwee-Wee fights out of a chin lock, but he's dumped to the outside. Athai means take out the camera. Skipper goes for the overdrive, aka the worst move ever, but Kwee-Wee counters the powerbomb. And I guess I better get this out of the way now. I'm sure some people are already going to mention it in the comment section, but shout out to Deadlock because the White Boys are here. That's right, the Natural Born Thrillers on the stage. It's this massive group of power plant grads. They recently debuted a couple of weeks before New Blood Rising, and their whole thing is, oh, we've been in the power plant busting our butts, and we're biding our time, but we're tired of waiting, and we're going to take what we want in WCW. Ooh, our old trainer, Paul Orndorff. Boo, we don't like him. He's old. And so, and like they're like on every other segment of TV right now. They're aligned with the Russo group. But what are they doing here, I wonder? Kwee-Wee slams Skipper into the barricade. The referee is distracted in time for above average Mike Sanders to deck Kwee-Wee with a stickball bat. Then Paisley slaps Skipper right in front of the referee. Top rope cross body. We counters. We get a kick out. Okay, this match is just still going. Skipper keeps attacking the leg. Then he hits the overdrive, that famous leg maneuver, to win. I'll give it 2.5 stars out of 5. I think the match was okay. I think that, again, I don't know why Natural Born Thrillers are in this angle here. They have enough stuff going on, it seems. I do think that Kwee-Wee and Elix Skipper both dodged huge bullets by like graduating far sooner than the other like power plant guys, so they wouldn't be part of Natural Born Thrillers. But this is like some of the earliest examples you're seeing of, like, on a big scale at least, of Elix Skipper's athleticism, and man, he's just going to continue to do great things, especially in TNA. Trios action up next as 3 Count take on Lieutenant Loco, Corporal Cajun, and Sergeant AWOL of the Misfits in action. Before the match, though, of course, you got Evan, Shane, and Shannon putting the green dots in the ring, thanking the fans for being such great fans. You know, they can't be beat, they won't be beat, and soon everyone's going to lay down for the 3 Count. Take us home, Jimmy Hart. I can't get you out of my heart. I knew we were in trouble right from the start. We should have played it smart. Now I can't get you out of my heart. And they get the whole fucking song. Like, I could not believe this, because that's the heel thing, you know? They get the musical number or the dance or whatever, and like, they get halfway through, and then the baby faces interrupt them. Nope, they got the whole, like, verse and chorus of the song, and then the opponents came out. I could not believe that. Nice USA chant for the match, which is entirely made up of Americans. Solid cruiserweight action with Chavo and the Count Boys. Then the Wall comes in to a nice reaction. Courageous tripping up Cajun, that's Lash LaRue from the outside. That allows 3 Count to take over, build their heat. Courageous with a big elbow drop. Shane Helms hits the free fall, this diving sunset flip, which honestly looks like it hurts him more than his opponent. And Shannon with a twisting splash. Cajun avoids a corner splash. It's a nice springboard facebuster on Shannon. We get the hot tagged to AWOL. And oh shit, I just finally noticed that Dick the Destroyer Buyer is sitting in the crowd on the hard cam. Then everyone's diving out of the ring and trying to overshoot so they don't hit this table in the way. Shannon with a dive, Chavo with a dive. Shane wants to do one of his own but gets cut off by the other guys. Wall picks up Shannon by the hair and Scott Hudson with a great call saying, "That's my worst fear come true," as Helms kicks Wall off the apron and through Chekhov's table. Shane sugar smacks his own partner, Chavo catching Shannon in midair for a powerbomb. Wall gets back in this thing, Cajun hitting his finisher to win. Big win for the MIA. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. This was a fine and dandy 6-man, you know? I think the action and the pacing in this was actually pretty good. And so for a match that I didn't really care that much about, I walked away from this one feeling like, okay, this was impressive. Backstage, Kevin Nash, Jeff Jarrett, and Scott Steiner come to the building and reject a kid who just wants an autograph, but you can still see he has this cheesy smile on his face. And man, if social media were around then, that kid would have become a celebrity overnight. They would have memed the shit out of that kid. Like, you think about the John Cena kid from Brussels, like that's what this kid reminds me of here. He would have had his own, like, Instagram show by the end of this night. Well, gird your loins for this one, folks. It's a tag team chain match as the Harris brothers take on Kronik. Now, these two big, galumphing, brawling tag teams, they have been beefing with each other for a long time in 2000, most recently at New Blood Rising when the Harris twins came back, costing Kronik the tag titles, and they've been just at each other's throats ever since then. Also, kind of a random side observation, I don't know if it's a regional dialect thing or what, but I don't know, the way Mark Madden pronounces the word W-A-R was just kind of off-putting to me.
This is going to be a war, pure and simple, a war.
Brian Adams says the Harris boys look pretty confident for a couple of sheep waiting to be slaughtered, and then he says, let's make this a first blood match. Yes, let's put a hat on top of that hat. Now finally, we can distinguish which Harris twin is which. No Ron or Don, no Don or Ron. It makes me sad a little bit, but you know, we have them chained up so we can kind of tell them apart. So you've got Heavy D with Adams and Big Ron with Clark, and within seconds of the bell ringing, Adams whips Ron into David Penzer at ringside. This match is punch, 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 barricade, table, barricade. They brawl into the crowd. They're right in front of Dick Buyer and the rest of his people out there. And this is, you know, it's kind of a big deal, I would think. Like, the Destroyer is one of the most legendary names in wrestling, and he's sitting there in gimmick on hard cam, and they finally mention him. Mark Madden's the first and only person to mention that he's there on the show tonight. And as they're doing that, Scott Hudson says, "Good, this is his hometown." Like, that's all you gotta say? Like, fuck you, dickhead. They make their way back to ringside as Scott Hudson says, "This is no longer professional wrestling." And what a call by Tony Schiavone here, where he says, "I've never seen so much flesh hit so many devices of steel in my life." Fighting into the announce table, oh no, not their chips. Adams is choked out in the ring for a long time. We get a referee bump and a no DQ first blood chain match. Now Ron, who is bleeding, has produced a barbed wire ball bat and just decks Clark with it. Adams gets busted open. The referee wakes up and sees that, calls the match for the twins, but Kronik fight them off. They give Billy Silverman a hell of a bump, his second of the night, and they stand tall. I'm going to give that 0 stars out of 5. That fucking sucked. And man, just to think, we were off to a pretty good start in those first 2 matches. It's going to get wild, folks. That's all I'm going to say. One of the bigger storylines in WCW around this time, as I kind of alluded to earlier, was Lance Storm's mega push. When he came from ECW to WCW, right away, Vince Russo pushed him to the moon and had him win all the mid-card belts in a matter of weeks. The US Championship, the Hardcore Championship, and the Cruiserweight Championship. I think long-term that might have kind of screwed up his chances a little bit, because if you're able to win those titles so easily, like, how come, like, not the world title? I think that really stunted him more than anything. But in that moment, that was a big deal for him to kind of be this belt collector in WCW. I wonder if he had creative control. But anyway, his biggest rival at this point is General Rection of the MIA. It's a big US versus Canada war. We'd already seen what happened when Major Guns was abducted, became a POW for Team Canada. And recently, Hacksaw Jim Duggan was on TV to announce his retirement from wrestling after 20 years, and he wants to pass the torch. He wants to pass the old glory in the 2x4 to General Rection. Like, that's the guy you want to, like, peg as the next Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Like, there's only one of you, and you decide, okay, like, yeah, why not? We're in the promo zone. Pamela Paulshock talking to General Hugh G. Rection, reminding him that he can get the U.S. title and Major Guns back if he can beat Lance Storm tonight. The General says that for every lie Lance Storm has told, for every ounce of hate in his blood, there are 1,000 Americans who will lay down for this country. He says he will take the title and Major Guns back, and he's got a surprise for you, Lance. He's dedicating this match to Hacksaw Jim Duggan, who is now saying he's the special guest enforcer. Wowee! I wonder where this is going. So we go to that match now for the US/Canadian title. Guns looks sad, but Lance is super serious. He says he's got a lot of mixed emotions because he is so close yet so far from his homeland here in Buffalo, and he can't understand why all these people who live so close wouldn't just want to move north of the border. So he says, once I get done beating General Rection in front of that has-been hero Jim Duggan, you all can come up with me to Kitchener, Ontario tomorrow for Nitro, and once you get a taste of the good life, you'll be applying for your Canadian citizenship. I thought that was a great promo. So then the Canadian national anthem plays, we get the interruption, we get the head snap, no, we don't get that, we get the whole national anthem? Wow, big ups for the heels tonight, they're getting their whole song and dances out. Rection's off to a hot start. Look at the elevation and hang time on Lance's back body drop. The General keeps attacking while Duggan and Guns lead a USA chant. Storm takes Rection to Dick Kick City and takes over. Beautiful springboard crossbody to the outside by the champion as Jim Duggan does a taunt. Back at the ring, there's some good backy forthy. Rection fights out of a maple leaf attempt, hitting a high German suplex. Storm powders. Duggan throws him back into the ring. Then he gets on the apron, like you do, to tell Rection to get on that top turnbuckle like he needs the advice, and gosh, you'll never guess what happens next. Curse your sudden yet inevitable betrayal, Duggan, as Storm picks up the victory, and Jim Duggan showing his true colors, tearing the shirt off to reveal he's part of Team Canada now, as Scott Hudson says, damn you, Jim Duggan, damn you to Canada. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. Thought the match was okay, yet the ending, the twist of Duggan was so predictable. That is a real hallmark of this time period where it's like, hey, we're going to introduce this new thing, this new plot twist, but before you have time to really process that, bam, the plot twist is also a swerve. It's like they set it up deliberately so like that next thing happens like in the next scene. It's not even like, there's versions of it. They'll plant the seed and maybe wait 2 hours like they do with the Russo group and everything. But here they're taking that and they're just speed run. They're doing the express lane in this one. Hey, Duggan's the enforcer. Psyche's Team Canada now. And so again, I don't hate this angle. That's the thing. I want to say that I think growing up watching this was actually one of the storylines I liked the most watching WCW at that time, because I liked Lance Storm, and I think that this was honestly, I know it's like not a lot to compare to, but this is probably the best work of Bill DeMott's career. Like, as General Rection, as unfortunate as that name is, I did like the build-up and the feud that he and Storm had here, and I think they do have good chemistry. So I think this is probably the best thing that happened in Hugh Morris's run. You got that singles push. He's not the U.S. champion yet, but he will. And as far as like the overall story, it's silly. It's U.S. versus Canada, and even then it's played out. But they did it okay, and I think again it made General Rection and Lance Storm both look good. We get Mean Gene Okerlund in the promo zone with the Natural Born Thrillers, Mike Sanders doing a Conan impression, and Gene just destroys him.
Hey, real good impression there, you prick. What about the rest of you piss ants? Anybody else want to do impressions?
Hey, old man, why don't you shut up?
What do you call him?
Hey, blow it out your ass, O'Hare. I got guys that can take out your kneecaps.
So after Mean Gene just turns into an angry old man for a second and tells them to blow it out their ass, I don't know how the heels don't just completely break there. They have to compose themselves so Sanders could keep going and saying that they're the most genetically jacked stars and how they've busted their ass and this and that. And he calls the filthy animals, 2 midgets, a bald guy, and a cheese whiz sucking trailer trash hoochie. He says, I'm a gambling man by nature, and your odds aren't looking good. I hate the Natural Born Thrillers. I cannot get over just how poorly this group is perceived. And what makes it worse is everyone buries them. Whether it's another wrestler or a commentary, they give these guys no respect. And it's Gosh, any wonder these guys can't get over when everyone points out what goobers these guys are? Like Konnan, all he does in his promos at this point, he's just like, all right, you're gay, you're gay, you're gay, and if you don't like that, you can eat my ass and jerk me off. Like, what is this mixed messages that he's doing? Also, Johnny the Bull came back from injury and turned on Big Vito to join the Natural Born Thrillers a while back like they needed it. Anyway, our next matchup is truly, on paper, a clusterfuck of epic proportions. It's a 7-on-7 elimination tag team match, as all the members of the Natural Born Thrillers will take on the Filthy Animals and Big Vito and a special surprise opponent, which is just now being introduced. We get this shot of the Filthy Animals out in the parking lot. A mystery man covered in a towel comes out of a limousine. They take this long walk to the entrance, and then they reveal the man himself, Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff, the head trainer of the power plant, still looking in great shape, and he's got an axe to grind with the Thrillers. A few weeks ago, they did an angle on TV where Paul Orndorff was like interviewed by Tony Schiavone, and he's getting really pissed at the disrespect of the Thrillers. At one point, he does an arm wrestling match with Shawn Stasiak, and Shawn makes him like wrestle with his bad arm, and he still comes out winning. I liked this reveal. Again, Orndorff looks to be in phenomenal shape and could probably still go to an extent. He's certainly protected enough. He's got a million other people with him, but I was kind of surprised by that. Like, don't you think that would have helped the story a little bit to like build to this? Like, surprises I think are fine, but I think if you're gonna have Paul Orndorff come back from his first match from like injury in years, I would think you would try to build that up a little bit. And I don't know, maybe they wouldn't have done it because, at that time, wrestling had a very very ageist kind of thing, where if you were over a certain age, then you were just dead to them. And so maybe they didn't want to push Orndorff coming back because, it's just like we're promoting the old. And so maybe that's why they waited until the show to reveal it. But I think that kind of did a disservice. They really should have given it some actual build. Early on, Ray tries to slide out of the ring, but he crashes into a crew member. He recovers, hits a springboard leg drop onto Mark Jindrak. Commentary pointing out here that, Disco cost Ray and Hoovy the tag titles. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, how come they came out with the tag belts just now for their intro? And then I realized, I looked ahead and I thought, wait a minute, Tony is spoiling the finish of what happens to the tag titles for the next night on Nitro. Disco costs Ray and Hoovy the tag titles then, and they're held up. I could not believe he did that. They keep referring to Juventud Guerrera as non-stop action, just not in totality. Sean O'Haire catching Hoovy in midair with a nice stalling Falcon arrow. Disco tags himself in and promptly starts taking the heat. Konnan then comes in with the greatest hits, the rolling clothesline, the face buster. Disco's a fucking idiot here, and he gets in the ring, costs K-Dog an elimination. Then nobody else wants to tag Disco in until Vito actually decks him. Roll the dice by Reno, sending Disco packing. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that in this part of the storyline, Disco is like the hated member of the Filthy Animals. Even they don't want him in the group, to the point where there was actually a running bit on an episode of Thunder where the Animals wanted Disco out of the group, and Ernest Miller was like, sorry man, I can't do that. We can't fire Disco. And they're all, oh man. And then they walk out of the office, there's a line of people, and Jimmy Hart's at the front going, hey baby, is there good news? And they're like, sorry man, they're not firing Disco. And everyone's like, oh man. We have a face-off between Vito and Reno, the man with the silliest shorts in the Natural Born Thrillers. They keep alluding to their mysterious past. They keep saying, they must have some kind of past, the way they're interacting with each other. Boy, I can't wait for that reveal. Vito with the him special on Chuck Palumbo. Orndorff tosses in the old stickball bat. Now Vito's a fucking idiot. Where was Johnny the Bull hiding that kendo stick? And now Vito's out. Ray and Hoovy are doing their best. As Hoovy hits the him driver, he and Ray do the what's up leg drop, and Reno's out. Jindrak and O'Haire intercept Hoovy on the outside, hit a super hip toss back into the ring. That was awesome. The Shanton bomb, and Juventude's out. Paul Orndorff gets in now. He goes on a huge run. He hits the wiggly elbow. Johnny the Bull gets a swinging, but Orndorff grabs the stick, hits him a couple of times with it, pile driver to Johnny the Bull, and he is out. Orndorff's still in the fight. He's ducking and dodging and everything. He hits another pile driver onto Jindrak, and then he fucks himself up. He does the pile driver, falls back, gives himself a stinger. I have never seen someone do that before. That was shocking. But that moment where he does it and he's down, he's laid out. I'm like, oh shit, you can tell right away he's fucked up because he ain't moving. And referee's checking on him. We have medical officials. We have the trainer going in there. Meanwhile, this match is still going. So it's like they just kind of cover it by, oh, we're going to pin Orndorff. He's out. And now we're going to just keep wrestling while this guy is just laying in the middle of the ring. The trainer is literally holding his head in place to stabilize it as the wrestlers are trying to run around him. Someone stop this fucking match already. Finally, after like a minute of this, Charles Robinson finally waves it off, says the match is over. Thank fucking God. This match, it was kind of hard to watch throughout most of it because like it was already kind of a confusing cluster to begin with. I thought the baby faces were looking like total jabronis for the first half of the match. The heels not much better. And then Paul Orndorff fucks himself up doing his own move. I could not believe it. This the shock, like the roller coaster of emotions to come back like that. Unannounced, big surprise return, and then you're done. And like you're out again. Like that had to have been so messed up to experience. I mean, I could not believe how long they kept trying to wrestle despite the obvious issue of like, this guy is injured and should not be moving right now. And do a big stretcher thing for him. They would continue the match the next night on Nitro. They would kind of pick up where they left off. So it was basically Rey Mysterio Jr. and Tigress, the valet for the Animals, by the way. And it was against 5 other members of the Natural Born Thrillers. And Rey and Tigress won. Pamela's backstage with Billy Kidman and Madusa. She says, tonight you'll be competing against one of the most dangerous events in WCW history, the Pittsburgh Plunge Scaffold match. No, they're actually going against, Shane Douglas and Torrie Wilson, but you were close. Kidman does wish Orndorff well to start things off. Then he says he knew his war with the franchise could escalate to this. But do you think Torrie is ready for this, Shane? Imagine what Madusa is going to do to that bitch. And then Madusa starts shouting, bitch is an understatement. And she shouts at Torrie and says that when she sends Shane Douglas off the scaffold, it'll be the last time you ever see her, you bastard. Lots of people with the swears tonight. Madusa is fired up. So up next, the Pittsburgh Plunge Scaffold match. And it's mixed tag now, as you've got Shane Douglas and Torrie Wilson versus Kidman and Madusa. Shane and Kidman had been feuding for a while. I mean, we talk about the New Blood Rising review. They had a match, and that was over, the Viagra on a pole, that whole storyline. And this is where it's ending up. So after their match at New Blood Rising, Shane chokes out Kidman with a chain and hangs him. So he's out for a few weeks. He finally comes back on the go-home week. And by now, they have tacked on like the women to the match. Where Madusa, nothing to do with these parties up until like 2 weeks before the show. And now she's added on to this for Kidman's team, and I don't get it. Shane and Torrie come out first, and Shane's on the live mic. He calls Madusa a bitch. Then he promises to throw her and Kidman off the scaffold, or these fans get their money back. Kidman and Madusa, they don't get an entrance, they just run out and get ready to fight. So the rules here, according to the commentary, seems to be different than a traditional scaffold match. I always kind of thought that the point of a scaffold match was to throw your opponent off it. And that was it. But now they're putting in a rule where it's like if you cross the scaffold and then make your way down the ladder, you win. Now, I don't know if that was a rule in the original scaffold matches back in the day, but that was never really tried either. So I think it was just you got to fall off. But anyway, they come out here and then you can see the platform rising. It's on these hydraulic lifts. And I love this part here where Shivani tells Madden, get all your boob jokes out of the way now because I'm going to try and sell this thing. And holy shit, look how wobbly this thing is. It's scary to watch. The lads and lasses pair off for a minute. Torrie sells for a while and she just blocks the ladder on the way down. Shane getting the STF on Madusa for a while. Then both women start crawling toward the opposite ends. All these bumps the guys are taking are making the scaffold bounce and shake and rock. I'm terrified of watching. I know what's going to happen, and I'm scared watching this. Madusa is briefly caught in the ladder, and what's stopping her from climbing down if only one person needs to do it for the match to end? Shane follows her down the ladder, kicks her off it, and she takes this big back bump onto a nice bouncy mat below. There was very little give on that side of the stage, Madden lied. So she does not win because she fell. Okay, so with that being said, why is Torrie not climbing down? Again, you only need one person to climb down to win. Throwing people off does not seem to be the objective here. But anyway, she finally hits Kidman with a low blow. Then Shane throws Kidman off the scaffold and he makes a big hole in the stage. So Madusa got the padded regular floor. Kidman gets the gimmicked one where he makes a big hole in it. So Shane then either forgets the rules of the match or maybe he just wasn't told, because after some stalling up there, then they're finally, oh yeah, you all gotta climb down now. And so Torrie finally climbs down after a big old wait, and that's the match. I'm gonna give it a half star out of 5. This was an ugly scaffold match. Like, I know it's not their fault, the timing sucks, but like to have an angle like that right after a match where somebody was given a stretcher job for fucking up a pile driver, and then you see Kidman plummeting 20 feet down through a hole. Where's his stretcher? I don't think he's getting one. I don't understand why they added the women to this. Torrie, I get it. But again, Madusa just felt totally just like, we got to give Torrie something. She got to find a lady. Like, if you're going to give Madusa anything at this point, it's got to be better than this, right? Backstage, MGO with the #1 contender, Sting. Gene brings up that Sting is looking to end his feud with the Dark Carnival tonight. And even though it will have no bearing on tomorrow's matchup where you face the winner of tonight's main event, well then, why'd you bring that part up? Sting says that he and Muta and Vampiro go way back having violent matches. Then he talks about how he's going to win the world title tomorrow when Jeff Jarrett jumps him. And Gene's like, stop it, Jeff Jarrett, you crazy bastard. And Jarrett's ranting and raving, says, well, tomorrow night I'm getting the title shot and I'll prove it. So things are setting up nicely for their eventual match at Halloween Havoc. So now it's time to go to a pre-taped promo. And I'm like, here on this show, we're going to take a break in the action and show something pre-taped? I can't wait for this. So anyway, a week ago on Nitro, David Flair and Stacy Keibler, parentheses Miss Hancock, were going to be married. This is, of course, the fallout from Bash at the Beach when David Flair betrayed Daphne and hooked up with Stacy, and so they fought. So now that's all water under the bridge. Everyone's cool now. And so then they have the wedding on Nitro. First round of it, Ric Flair shows up and he's immediately, kicked out and arrested because he violated a restraining order nobody mentioned until right then. And then they reset it for a little later in the night, and then Stacy reveals, I'm pregnant, but you're not the father of my baby. I'm sorry, David. And she leaves him at the altar, and David Flair is just completely despondent now and searching to find the father of the unborn child. So we go to David Flair's house where Mike Tenay wants to interview the poor bastard, and David's place is a total wreck. Apparently he just loves throwing newspaper around. So Mike's asking him, hey, Stacy Keibler left you at the altar. That must have sucked. How does that affect your mental state? Like, Tenay as an interviewer, on-the-field interviewer, his segments are always the weirdest because he has no bedside manner, he's got no tact, or if he does, it's very little patience. Like, he wears really thin, especially if he's interviewing the ladies, because then he just gets really misogynistic for some reason. But he asks, the most obvious questions. Can't see danger 3 feet away from his face. He's like, man, how does this affect your mental health? But to be humiliated and your world crumbling before God and everyone. And so David is silent for a while, occasionally popping up to look out the window. And he thinks the father's going to be out there any minute. And so he's asking David, have you been able to narrow down who the father could be? And David suggests his brother Reed, and Mike's like, Reed's 11 years old. And so then he brings up his recent interview that he did with David's father, Ric Flair. And of course, that was the big rumor around the time, is that this was supposed to end in a storyline where Rick was the father of Stacy's baby. So Tenay's bringing that up, and hey, Flair never denied that he was the father of the baby, and so, but we don't really get an answer from David about that because he sees out the window again, the father's here, he's here, and so he runs out the door, but it's the mailman, and David just wham, clotheslines the shit out of that guy, stomps him, puts the guy in the figure 4 for 2 seconds before it's broken up, and he's like, oh, I think you broke my leg, oh man!
I didn't do nothing! Was it you? Was it her? Oh, no.
David, this was such an amazing segment. And I hate the fact that this is not going to go anywhere, because the payoff to this is that Stacy Keibler comes out and is like, I was never pregnant. My real baby is Sean Stasiak, and the bassinet's full of 8x10s. This has nothing to do with that anymore. Well, up next, this should be a handicap match, but for whatever reason, it's triple threat, as Vampiro, accompanied by the Insane Clown Posse, take on the Great Muta and Sting. So Vamp is the JCW champion, and really, he and the ICP have been doing a bit of a JCW invasion because they've been bringing the belt out. Violent J and Shaggy have been talking, extolling the virtues of Juggalo Championship Wrestling, and one of my favorite recurring bits is when they commandeer the announce table as 3D and Guido and just do the riffing kind of commentary in the matches and calling people by the wrong names. That does happen in this match. Jay and Shaggy once again storm the announce table and go JCW mode for commentary here. Sting has jumped on the ramp and the match begins as 3D explains that the Grand Poobah needs to prove his loyalty to the Dark Carnival. So Vamp and Muta, they're working together against Stink as they brawl in and out of the crowd. Guido even gets a shot in. More back and forth. Stang fights back against the Grey Tuna and Vampiro briefly, but the numbers continue to be too much. Great Moolah hits the moonsault and has it won, but Vampiro breaks it up. Aren't they on the same team? They're fighting. ICP leave their post. They try to keep the peace, but then Sting comes in with a ball bat and beats all 4 guys up, hits Muta with a Scorpion Death Drop, and wins. Then after the match, the Carnival take their aggression out on Muta. Shaggy goes up top, but Sting pulls Muta out of the way mid-top rope leg drop. So there you see Sting kind of showing a little respect to his old, his old colleague, his old rival from the 90s there, doing a little solid for him. I'm going to give it 1 star out of 5. If you're going to have Sting and Muta in the same ring together, I think you should treat that as a bigger deal or have them do more, because I feel like the way this whole thing played out was kind of disrespectful to them. Again, I don't understand why this is a triple threat and not just a handicap match, because you can tell a lot of the same story and it would make just as much sense, if not more. Why does Vampiro care if Muta beats Sting if they're on technically the same team? And if Muta is supposed to prove his loyalty, wouldn't him beating Sting do that? I don't know. And also, yeah, Sting really sold that backstage beating he got from Jeff Jarrett, didn't he? Earlier today, Pamela was interviewing that 70s guy, Mike Awesome. And this is a hilarious exchange because, for weeks now, Awesome has been hitting on Pamela. And the way he does it here and the speed at which Pamela, shoots him down and gets right to the next question is hysterical.
How about you and I get aboard the Love Mobile and let's make some whoopee?
Actually, no, Mike, we're just friends. However,
So he asks him what his thoughts are on the Bunkhouse match, and he says he's got a big surprise. It's Gary Coleman. Yes, the actor Gary Coleman comes out from the 70s bus, and Awesome goes, "This is my favorite guy from the 70s." And Coleman goes, "Well, technically the 80s, but I get what you're saying." But, and I made a joke about that in my Mike Awesome and WCW video, but a lot of people pointed out different strokes began in 78, so technically it counts. But why is Gary Coleman here? I mean, okay, the 70s tie-in, fine, but it's I just feel, what a weird year WCW had for unpromoted celebrity appearances on their shows. You had James Brown at Super Brawl. You have Gary Coleman at Fall Brawl. Who else are you going to get? It's the Bunkhouse match as Double J, Jeff Jarrett, takes on Mike Awesome. Awesome has just kind of randomly become that 70s guy, apropos of nothing, after New Blood Rising, and it wasn't even very consistent. He cut a pre-tape promo on Nitro as the gimmick, the music's playing, the suit and everything, and then when he comes out later in the night for his match, none of that's there. He's just Mike Awesome again. And they wouldn't be until 2 weeks later when they actually kind of lined it all up and had it all be the same thing. The best moment of this build has nothing to do with the 70s gimmick and has everything to do with this one moment where Jeff Jarrett is going to the back of his pickup truck to get one of his dozens of guitars, and Mike Awesome just pops out from under the pile to jump him. Because we're in Buffalo, we see some members of the Buffalo Bills football team in attendance in the front row, and Jeff Jarrett, ever the consummate professional heel, he knows just exactly how to twist the dagger when it comes to drawing heat. Local sports references. He comes out wearing the Tennessee Titans jersey, and he's rubbing in to all these Buffalo fans about the Music City Miracle, which was a big old play that took place in the playoffs the previous season, earlier in 2000, and that came at the expense of the Bills. And so, yeah, Jarrett did a good job, building up that local heat. And we are underway. Jarrett strikes first, but Awesome fights back immediately, giving the Bills in the front row something to cheer for. We get a chair war, or is it a chair war? Awesome wins that battle, sets up the table he brought to the ring, teasing the Awesome Bomb off the top, which would have been nuts, but Jarrett backdrops him to the table, ugly landing. Jarrett taking a couple of bumps into the barbed wire table, but that sucker ain't breaking. A pop-up power bomb by Awesome looked really nice though. Awesome goes for a splash, but nobody in the pool. Jarrett with some more trash talk, but then all of the Buffalo Bills have leapt the barricade and they are now standing on the apron surrounding the ring. They shove Jarrett around, Mike hits the power bomb, Jarrett still kicks out. What the hell? How is that not the finish? It's okay, Jarrett's poking the bear, pissing off the football players. They come in, they help Mike Awesome win. That should be it, right? No, it's not. So Jarrett takes Awesome to Dick Kick City. Now all the football guys just kind of hanging out on the apron. Then Gary Coleman runs down. He pummels Jarrett in the dick and balls. Then he starts to celebrate. You can see he's almost losing his hat muffler. Then Jarrett El Kabongs Gary Coleman, and you can see the towel under his hat, which was used to pad the blow. I could not believe that. And still, we are not at the end of this fucking match. Then Jarrett goes for the stroke on Awesome. Then Sting runs in and hits the Scorpion Death Drop onto Jarrett. Awesome finally wins. I liked a lot of the chaos. Made me laugh real big. But what the fuck was this match? You're telling me Mike Awesome needed help from the 2000-2001 Buffalo Bills, Gary Coleman, and Sting to defeat someone in a matchup. Get the fuck out of here. In our next matchup, it's anything goes as Big Papa Pump Scott Steiner takes on Bill Goldberg. Well, back at the Great American Bash, which was the last 2000 show I covered here this year, Goldberg made his big heel turn. He came back and he was supposed to be fighting against the New Blood, but he joins the New Blood. Well, no one liked that. Most of all, Bill Goldberg. He hated being a heel, and so they kiboshed that right quick, and now Goldberg is once again a babyface, and he's going after Vince Russo. And in the process of this, he and Steiner have been beefing. At one point on Nitro, Goldberg jackhammers Madusa through a table in the back. You don't ever see it. You see him picking her up, and then the camera cuts away, and they come back, oh, she's already laid out. So then, the next week, Scott Steiner gets revenge by breaking into Goldberg's hotel room, kidnapping his girlfriend Beth, bringing her to the arena, and then locking in the Steiner recliner on her while Goldberg had to watch. Come on, man, if you really want to get edgy, you should have hit her with a Steiner screwdriver, and you know it. Back in the promo zone, Steiner's with Mean Gene. Are we going to get a swear-off?
Mean Gene, you know it. Everybody in the world knows it. And Goldberg, tonight I'm going to prove it. Because I'm the only man who's the genetic freak in the WCW. I'm the only man with the largest arms in the world. And Goldberg, ever since you fractured my face, I've left you laying nitro after nitro, thunder after thunder, barely keeping you alive so you could be here tonight so I could beat your ass. Only two things I care about, my freaks and my peaks. And when I get done beating his ass, I'm going back to the hotel because I'm a loaded Sex Pistol and I'm ready to explode.
And then after Steiner with an amazing pose and point out of the shot, which was great, then Gene with the cherry on top saying, geez, what a mouth on that bastard. I wonder, there must have been some meeting where Vince was telling Okerlund, okay, bro, we want to make you the funny, angry grandpa, bro. Can you start swearing in all your stand-ups, bro?
And we've got a wild night of WCW Monday Nitro scheduled for tomorrow night from Kitchener, Ontario. Can I finish a thought or two without you jumping in?
So yeah, Schiavone has just about had it with Mark Madden tonight. And both guys are making their entrances. Goldberg, of course, gets the security detail. And nowadays, I cannot help but notice every time we have one of these, you'll see Doug Dillinger waiting for Goldberg to come out. And you'll see him go ooh, do a little wince or kind of a cringe thing. Because you can hear Goldberg headbutting the door just before he comes out. And that's what he's reacting to. Now I can't not see that. So Steiner did suffer a legitimate broken orbital bone a few weeks ago, and so he is wrestling with this special face mask on. Kind of looks like a genetic caped crusader, if you asked me. They lock up. Steiner immediately goes to fists. Goldberg hits a shoulder tackle and easily lifts Steiner up for the press slam. Madden with a nice callback saying that Goldberg handled him like he was Gary Coleman. Great physical backy-forthy in and out of the ring. A snug-looking boot by Berg out of the corner. Steiner goes for a tombstone or a slam of some kind. Goldberg reverses it, hits one of his own. Steiner dodges a spear, climbs up top. Goldberg intercepts and slams him down. Holy hell. Brawling on the outside as Madusa makes her way to the ring with that telltale lead pipe. Scott continues to pour on the offense as Goldberg is now bleeding. And holy shit, that's one of the scariest belly-to-belly landings I've ever seen. But he is able to recover. He spears Steiner, but it looks like he runs himself into Steiner's lead pipe. Suddenly in comes Vince Russo, who bludgeons the shit out of Goldberg with a ball bat. Steiner still cannot put him away. Way to make a bat mean nothing. Steiner body slams Goldberg through a table on the outside. This match is nuts. So the Steiner recliner's locked in. Goldberg crawls forward, grabs the ropes. I didn't know that you could do that in an anything goes, no holds barred match. Anyway, so he's using that though to climb up. He's got Steiner on his shoulders for an electric chair, and oh my God, what the hell is this? They're fighting on the top rope now. Rusev and Madusa both clubbing Goldberg from behind. Steiner with a top rope suplex. Goldberg spiked again. And can you see Mickey J trying to push Goldberg's shoulder up there? Back in the recliner, Goldberg back into the ropes, propels Scott out of the ring. Steiner grabs a chair. Goldberg moves out of the way, hits a terrible roll of the dice. Vince Russo comes into the ring with a bat, but Goldberg grabs him. Steiner with two massive swings of the lead pipe to Goldberg. Back in the hold, Goldberg is out. The referee calls it, and Scott Steiner wins. Then Vince Russo takes his shirt off in celebration, okay? Then after they leave, who keeps letting all these football players jump the barricade as the Buffalo Bills help Goldberg up and give him his props? You know what? I am being 100% truthful when I say this is not only my favorite match of this show, I think it's one of my favorite matches I've seen all year in WCW 2000. I'm going to give it 4 stars out of 5 because this was such a welcome surprise to me. I'd never seen this match before going into it. I think it was one of the best car crash matches I think I've ever seen. And I mean that in a good way. Like, what's the difference, you might ask, between, the Harris brothers and Kronik and, say, a match like this, where they're both pretty ugly matches. There's a lot of botching. There's some scary moments in there. But what I give these guys the nod for, Steiner and Goldberg, is the intensity and the fact they are just going balls to the wall the entire time. There is no letting off the gas in this matchup here. And yeah, Russo and Madusa, like them being involved was silly. And I couldn't believe some of the stuff like they all did to each other, but it was just, it was so fun. I think this was easily one of my favorite Goldberg matches I've ever seen. But oh, sadly, the good times must end. Not saying this next match is bad, it's just not as good as the previous match. We go to our main event now. It's a cage match for the WCW World Championship as Kevin Nash defends against Booker T. So as we saw at Bash at the Beach, Booker T was given the rocket, they strapped it to him. He's the new face of the company. He's the future. He and Jarrett, these guys are going to be locked in for a while. They fought at New Blood Rising. Booker T retained the belt once again. And during all this time, Kevin Nash has been very buddy-buddy with Booker T. A lot of mutual respect stuff. But recently, psych, Nash betrays him, and we get one of the screwiest fucking title matches of all time on Nitro that ends with Nash winning the belt. This whole evil coalition is in power, they're a team and everything. So that just kind of continues. Booker T has to fight the odds of dealing with this very large, very stupid group of the 4 main guys and the Natural Born Thrillers. During this time period, they do have War Games 2000, Russo's Revenge, the first and only time War Games was ever on TV. I did a whole breakdown of it in last week's Worst of Nitro video. I'm not going to go into all of it here. I certainly said enough last week. So if you want to know more about it, go watch the countdown from last week. But that also happened. And also, one thing I forgot to mention in that write-up was that in that matchup, Vince Russo allegedly suffered his 3rd concussion in 3 months. And they show this like very dated brain surgery footage and they say he's like in stable but critical condition. It's such bullshit. And then he shows up and he's fine. So backstage in the promo zone, Pamela says, "Booker T, this is your title shot." Wow, great insight, lady. Booker thinks back about all the stuff they've thrown at him in the last few weeks and says, "You've got to kill me to take the belt from me, and that's what you did. You ran a game on me, you stole the belt, but I told the people that I'm going to win the title back tonight, and I will." And he wraps it up by saying, "Don't hate the player, hate the game." Michael Buffer with the intros for this one. Nash has his Hogan tan going on, brother. He also has one of the biggest boo-boo faces I've ever seen. The match is underway, Nash using his power early on. Booker's much faster, but Nash catches him with a clothesline. Nash presses R1 to remove the turnbuckle pad, but it backfires. Booker hits his axe kick, follows up with a spin-a-rooney. Nash fights back with a choke slam, but he cannot capitalize. Booker fights back. He drives Nash's face into the exposed turnbuckle, and now Big Daddy Culotta is busted open. Nash wants to go for the jackknife, but Booker hangs onto the cage, hits a missile dropkick. Nash with a low blow. Wow, what a shocker. The straps come down. He goes to the powerbomb once more, but Booker lands on his feet, hits the bookend, the cover, the win. Booker becomes a 2-time, his second of 5 WCW World Championship reigns. All the kids with bowl cuts be raising the roof for this one as this show goes off the air. I'm going to give it 2 stars out of 5. And well, it's better better than, Road Wild 99. It's better than Great American Bash 2000. I can't complain about that. It's wild how this is one of the only matches all night not to include any kind of bullshit. And I have to admit, it's kind of a letdown. I don't know, because when Nitro every week is screwy shit, and you had the 70s bus rolling in on the Go Home show, and Goldberg's strapped to the grill, and Booker's thrown through the windshield, and you have all these screwy matches, War Games, and the match before that. You have so much crazy shit during TV, and then when it comes to this big main event, this big personal thing, it's just okay, I was expecting a little bit of whatever, something, okay, I'm glad that it was relatively clean, and, Booker wins the belt back, hooray, hurrah, but I don't know, just kind of very plain way to end the show, especially when you had such a crazy ass match like you had with Steiner and Goldberg just earlier. My grade for WCW Fall Brawl 2000 is a C-. I gotta give him credit. I was thoroughly entertained with this show. Probably not for the same reasons that WCW thought I should be entertained by, and Lord knows it doesn't mean it's a good show. It's not. It's a bad show, but there's just enough wild shit in this show and silly stuff to keep a smile on my face. A Bunkhouse match and the Steiner-Goldberg match, whoo, those had to be hooting and hollering. I tell you what, those were just fun matches to watch back, even though they were, in their own ways, gigantic messes. There were a lot of wrestling tropes that, got used far too much on this show, but also there were some other tropes that, seemed obvious, but they didn't act on. The fact that both 3 Count and Team Canada got their whole song and dances, and in Team Canada, and Storm won. He got his whole song and dance, and Jim Duggan joined up. That's heel city, baby. So after his match with Goldberg here, Scott Steiner is kind of the next man in line, and he is going to become the next world champion soon. He challenges Booker T to a title match at Halloween Havoc, then again at Mayhem, which I will be covering here on the channel in November. But before that, there is a special pay-per-view, the Millennium Final in Germany. That is going to be the next WCW 2000 pay-per-view I review exclusively on Patreon. So if you want to find out about Millennium Final, you can go to patreon.com/wrestlingwithregret, and that will be coming up later in November. But then here on the main channel later that month, we will be covering what is to me the final part of the story of WCW in 2000, the last pay-per-view of the year that I need to review. WCW Mayhem, that's coming up in November. We got other classic reviews here on the main channel until then. But folks, what did you think of Fall Brawl 2000? What about this review? Let me know in the comments section below. WCW 2000, man, it's a wild ride and we are reaching the end of it. I hope you're ready. But until then, folks, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.